Hello, we are part of the Professional Action Network for Special Education.
Our project is called Creating Small Groups, and welcome to the Spring Fire Summit 2022.
We are going to discuss creating small groups in order to differentiate for guided reading and guided math groups. I am Melissa Hall, and I teach special education, kindergarten through second grade at Highland Turner Elementary in Breathitt County.
And my name is Jeremy Hall, and I teach special education in grades 3 through 6 at Highland Turner Elementary in Breathitt County.
Small group station teaching is an effective way to differentiate instruction and reach all students on their instructional level.
Creating those homogeneous groups of students needs to be evidence-based for cohesiveness and sustainability.
A systematic approach for analyzing student data to create small groups for guided reading and guided math instruction is necessary.
Students are assessed numerous ways through district screeners such as MAP or running records for reading. Basically, any assessment can be given to yield individualized results.
It's gathering these test results and analyzing the data to create learning opportunities that can respond to intervention and apply to individual instructional levels that can be a problem of practice for some teachers. So that leads us to creating small groups.
Step one would be to administer an individual reading screener and/or some type of math assessment.
And then once you have administered the assessment, you need to analyze the data to determine each student's specific instructional level. Usually this means you're going to label them novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished.
Or if you're doing F&P levels or DIBELS, you know what level the students are at in reading. You know that the students are at an early literacy level or they're an emerging reader. You have the students, you have a good picture of where that student is at in reading or math.
And then the next thing you want to do once you have that picture, you're going to compare that data to the other students within your classroom. This way you can see maybe which students are at the same instructional levels and would make a good group.
Of course, you always want to cluster students into homogeneous groups for guided math and reading groups. It's important also to factor in outside influences like behavior, group sizes, and schedules. And I know those things can be issues to work through sometimes, but if you know that two students don't get along, even if they're on that same level, it might be a good idea to separate their groups, adjust the groups a little bit as necessary.
Okay, so here is an example of the data that I got from a second grade class with only 15 students in it. We were lucky this year to have small class sizes. And they took the MAP test in winter. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but the first column, the black ink, is their RIT score, like the specific number that the test yielded for them. And then in the orange ink next to that is their percentile rank based upon their RIT score. And if you'll see, there's two black columns and two orange columns. Well, the first one's the first one's fall, and the second one's winter. And then on the very end there at the far right, in the purple ink, that is their benchmark category, like proficient, distinguished, novice, apprentice.
So students were grouped based on, one way to group would be based on the benchmark assessment. There were 7 novice, there were 3 apprentice, there was 4 proficient, 1 distinguished. You could group some of those novice students together that have the same RIT band deficiencies. Maybe it's in foundational reading, maybe it's in literary, maybe it's in informational text. Maybe you also want to compare that MAP data to their F&P level data, and you say, okay, these students are scoring novice because they're not reading on grade level, and we need to do some guided reading activities with them to try to boost their fluency.
All right, and this is the example of their math MAP data. And it's basically, it's the same thing. The black ink is their RIT score, and then the orange ink is their percentile, and then their benchmark category is the purple ink. And you'll notice that that's for the fall and the winter as well.
And again, students can be grouped based on the benchmark. Your novice students will oftentimes on math have similar deficiencies. Maybe it's numbers and operations, maybe it's something with geometry, maybe it's measurement and data. But you can look at what those students are, what they're having issues with, and then you can tailor your groups and activities to try to build on those weakness areas.
Okay, now, once you have all that data together, that's when you need to create your groups and factor in your scheduling and how many paraprofessionals, professionals, teachers, co-teachers, however many people you're going to have that will be able to take a group at that time. You're going to factor all of that in and create the schedule in the small groups. For this class, like we had, one group had, I think, 3 apprentice and 2 novice. Well, I could take, the 3, well, there was like 8 apprentices or something. And so I took some of the lower end apprentices and the higher end novices and made them a group together. Tell them about the meatloaf and the.
So when, you group the students, and the students they don't know which group they're in. They don't know if they're in a lower group or higher group, because everybody's getting pulled for groups at some point, no matter what level they are. So those groups are called meatloaf, mashed potatoes, salsa, apples, oranges, bananas, just whatever kind of name that you want to choose. But we usually do 40-minute stations that are divided up into 2 20-minute groups. That's what has worked for us this year.
Okay. Sometimes there is only a teacher in the room during your guided groups time or your small group time. And sometimes usually at our school, you definitely get a teacher and a co-teacher. One of us were the co-teachers. And we like to use Jan Richardson. She is a good one for some resources and materials to do guided reading or guided math. There's also leveled literacy intervention. That's another good resource. You can use anything like from your classroom curriculum that the students that you need to differentiate and maybe reinforce some concepts. Those are good for guided groups.
That, like she said, with the Jan Richardson, that's typically the model that we use for guided reading. We have our students grouped based on F&P levels, math levels, etc. That kind of gives us our basis for instruction during that time. Obviously, when you have small groups, you're going to have some kids that have to be working independently. Try to tailor that to meet your needs. If there's programs that you use at your school, like you have Reading Plus, Lexia, Dreambox, Alex Math requirements, let those students work on that during some of the time. Maybe you have some of your daily fluency activities that students can work on. Be creative and come up with some activities that not are just filling time, but are meaningful things that you were going to do. This can be a time to help you through your day when students are working independently. And of course, some of it will have to be differentiated on their needs, but once students get in the groups and get used to working, the independent students, they want their teacher time too. They're going to be working just as hard as the students that are with you in the small group setting.
Teachers, co-teachers, or paraprofessionals will have reading or math groups for student stations.
The guided reading groups will be at the same level from Dibbles, F&P, maybe their Lexile levels.
And guided math groups will be at their same learning level based upon data as well. The map, a district standard, any kind of classroom assessment. You may notice that you need that 3 or 4 students still need some extra help in this area. Well, you might pull them one day as in a guided group for your time. And then the other students, of course, are working independently.
And you have to tailor your groups to meet your needs at your school. Every school has different curriculum needs. At our school, they look at groupings periodically. They kind of see what's working, which students are showing growth, and they adjust the group sizes and as necessary. So you kind of got to have some flexibility there. But these small groups will allow strategies and practices to take place on individual instructional levels so you can see maximum progress and growth.
I can't say enough good stuff about small groups. However, I know it can be overwhelming at first. So if you get all your data together and you get stuck, please feel free to email us, either one of us.
I'd be happy to help. The most important thing to me is just don't be afraid to try. I know it's scary. I know it seems like a big ordeal or task, but you really do get a lot of bang for your buck with that time with those small groups of students working on working to their individual tailored needs. Thank you.
Thank you.